Hey Alpha fam, welcome back to another episode of Alpha Commission. Today I just wanted to do a brief summary of a fractal that's kind of playing out, which I see based upon one of these type of almost a V-shaped dip. You can call it maybe a W also, but I'll point that out. And then we're also going to take a look at some indicators to see are we still bullish, what's going on. Well, we obviously have been middling in this channel for the last couple days, and there's not too much going on here. We've had some ups and downs as we've had the Ukraine war, situation, and then perhaps Putin's backing off. Now the US is saying that, Putin's not backing off, and also the interest rates are just hanging over our head like a guillotine, ready to fall next month, and we don't know if it's going to be a, a metal blade or a plastic blade. So we don't know if they're playing around or if it's going to be the kiss of death for the market. But we'll find out soon enough. As for now, again, we're just middling. We're just doing this range. Obviously, we have our support here. Bitcoin's been pretty strong. We've been holding this territory. We haven't broken down. But I would like to show you this fractal that's playing out. And I don't think anyone else is going to show you this. This is just kind of my own style. I kind of wing it. And a lot of people get annoyed by this type of analysis. But hear me out, okay? So often, whenever you have something in Bitcoin where there's a dip, you see an immediate reaction, right? Like just a counter reaction, dip, counter reaction, dip, counter reaction. But a lot of these dips, they take a certain form where you can kind of draw out a pattern that plays out on both sides of this V. You find a center of the pattern and it plays out on both sides. So you had a swoop, a down, a swoop, and kind of like a candy cane, and then a V, right? Well, here's your V, your recovery, candy cane, your swoop, a dramatic up, and then sure enough, you have this little swoop again, right? Swoop, swoop, down, down, you know, curve, curve, candy cane, and then the V at the center. And it's just interesting that these type of recoveries, whether it's the institutional candles or it's these curves, they get recovered. These zones get recovered, and these blocks get recovered. So if you can ever identify those, then sometimes you can be in a good trading position, and they may not be that obvious. So, for example, you might, this might be a center. See a swoop, and then kind of a pump, a swoop, a swoop, and then a dump. Okay, so this is where it can get tricky. These things break down along their periphery, but as long as you're very close to the center of it, you can find these patterns. And I'm on a 12-hour right now. If you go to the lower time frames, it works even better, and I'll show you. So one thing that I do just to start out is I try to see if there's any diagonal resistances, any you know, short-term patterns that are just being traded. I don't know if they get printed by bots or what. Some of them are origin lines, but other of them, they seem almost mechanically written into the price action. And if you take a close look, you can see that we do have one of these patterns, but it's on a diagonal, and so it would be very hard for people to notice it. In this case, it's a little upward V, okay? And then, well, we can call it a W. So this is the middle, and then it pokes up, up, down, down, up, up, kind of upside down candy cane. And this type of U, and then it has a kind of downward area, and look at this. It meets kind of a flag. This kind of flag, I've already marked it out here, right? This type of flag right here. It's where we're at right now. We're right there on this side of the pattern. And at the edge of that flag, it swoops down, kind of makes a W, little candy cane here, and then shoots up. So what could we extrapolate from this pattern? Well, maybe we might just suspect, again, these things can break down towards the edges. The further you get away from the middle, the weaker and weaker these fractals become. Sometimes a down, right? I mean, this would be a shoot up. If you were coming from the center here, this would be shooting up. But as you got to this side, it's shooting down. So if this was one of those V's, it broke down. This can possibly go a different direction. But if we just follow this pattern, what I could see is perhaps we hit one of these diagonal supports, one of these two, and then make a W, and then we shoot up. So could it be something like this? And then maybe we chop up, just like we kind of chop up here, and then maybe pop up, maybe meet some resistance, or just consolidate, pop up, consolidate in these type of upper levels. Well, I don't know, but it's possible. It's possible, right? So I'm just showing you this type of a fractal that can play out. And this happens time and time again on Bitcoin, okay? This isn't something that is super special about this thing, about this formation here. It just so happens that this formation is on a very dramatic diagonal when most of them are usually fairly flat, you know. This isn't a good example, but this one is a very good one. And so, yeah, it's just interesting. Just I'll be following this. I don't expect this flag to necessarily break upward. Based upon this fractal, I would expect it to swoop down. Maybe just test the lows again. Maybe just test the lows again. Perhaps as far down as 41,000. And then to work its way up. How far up it can go, I don't know. As you can see, these things have different lengths on one side than on the other, right? The length, the height of one side doesn't determine the height of the other side. It often does. It often does when you have an institutional candle, right? When you have like one of those BART patterns where here's a good one where you have this really clear institutional candle, and then horizontally you have the exact same height because this was a flat, right? They call it a Bart Simpson pattern because that's like Bart's hair, right? And you can imagine his face is upside down, right? So if this is Bart Simpson kind of a haircut, and there's institutional candles on each side, they tend to be recovered at the same height. But when they're on diagonals, like just you could just estimate something's going on here, right? You can kind of see that we have one of these fractals, and here this length is different than this length. They don't get recovered the same, but there is some type of similar price action in a mirror image form going on. And a lot of traders hate this type of analysis. They hate this type of analysis. They're not going to forgive me for pointing it out, but uh, whatever's going on here, it happens a lot. It happens a lot in Bitcoin, and I think it has to do with bots and algorithms. I don't think it's people consciously doing that. It may be market makers trying to recover profits and finding out that they can make more, trending in one direction than in the other direction. And so perhaps they just accelerate in that direction and it's just kind of a subconscious thing. But whatever's going on, these things do tend to work out that way. And so, yeah, I see that happening. And so I think we're going to play out this range just a little bit longer. Just take our time. Take our time in this area. And I wouldn't expect necessarily for us to pump, right now, but maybe a little bit more of a dip, scare some people, maybe get some liquidity, and then do a turnaround. Now, what would be the invalidation of that? The invalidation would be if we broke under this area, then we're in new territory. Because if we break down here, if we don't have that little W here, and if we don't have it here, then we're in a lower level, and we're going to be, you know, we're going to be falling pretty hard, I think. We're going to have to, you know, we'll be making a new pattern just like this, right? Drop into here, and then we drop again, drop, drop. That wouldn't be good. That would be very bearish because then we're going to have to fight in this area as opposed to this area. And so, yeah, my invalidation is going to be somewhere around 41,000 still. I don't want to see us breaking under there. If we do, I don't know what type of formation is going to play out. But for sure, this fractal will be broken if that happens. I'm looking for just like a quick drop, maybe hang out there for a little while, but just something a little bit reasonable, and then popping back up and making our way up into these higher areas where we may fight resistance at, around, $46,000 where we've struggled with. Just try to go for it again. Pop up, maybe have you know, some more resistance, some more action around this 49K area. And of course, all of your altcoins are going to be following suit depending on how that goes. Now, could this happen during the weekend? Perhaps, right? When there's a little bit less competition for the 24-hour exchanges, then maybe it'll be easier for them to play with this price action and free up some liquidity. But, this is just short-term stuff. Of course, I'm on the 12-hour right now. You can see this even more clearly on how this price action works in these these diagonals on the 4-hour or the 1 hour even. It respects it very well. I know most people, plot out the horizontal resistances, and that makes a lot of sense. That definitely is important. I can just do that in my head visually. I'm a very visual person, so I can just, visualize it in my mind. But these diagonals are what I struggle with, so I plot them out more often. And here you can see how there's this like gap in between the price action, but then this one filled it in, right? And it filled it in precisely. Same thing here. There was a little bit of price action right there, right? Otherwise, it stayed within these two levels. And then these were just kind of like extreme, kind of pokes down to the extreme, pokes up, and then some price action was built in between these levels. And so these diagonals end up being important. They do end up being important. And again, I'm not sure why. I think it's related to the bots. I think it's related to the AI. I think it's related to whatever programming goes into the computers of the super wealthy who run all of this. They, you know, they're bots that control these profits that decide we want to buy right now and we want to sell right here. It uses the past logic to make future logic, and so they run into each other. These lines run into each other. And here we can almost, we can visualize there's kind of a mid channel here, right? There's a mid channel. And I don't know exactly how it breaks into, how it gets formed. This isn't a perfect science, but you can see we kind of crossed into it. And here we're bumping into it right now. So we're either going to break down very soon, or we're going to pop back up to this level, right? It's going to be one of the two. We're running into this area, and you can see it respected it really well. Even, yeah, let me zoom in here. You can see just how well it respected it. Look, it hit this corner, bounced up, and then it came back and tested the diagonal. So look, it respected this line perfectly. It hit the corner. I mean, these things, they work. They work, okay? And price action that you think might be horizontal it actually ends up being diagonal. And if you're not able to think in a diagonal fashion, you're missing part of the story. You're missing part of the fractals that are very important. I know a lot of people can't think, three-dimensionally. They kind of think on paper or just thoughts. But if you're able to visualize this stuff, it can be an advantage. Because, look, we're starting to do it right now, aren't we? We're starting to break down. You're like, I'm capturing it live. Look at this. Exactly what I was calling out. We're seeing it live. And I don't know, just small bet that it finds its way down here. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it just finds its way here, right? Something like that. Traveling on this type of diagonal, it seems to be formed. But yeah, these things are important, right? So it could bounce up again. It could hold within this little diagonal area that it's forming. Anyway, it's running into resistance. Oh, it broke down, right? So it got caught up on that diagonal. Exactly while I'm explaining diagonals, it got caught on it, and then we saw it break down. Yeah, very perfect example. Perfect example. Well, let's see how it does, because obviously that's playing out exactly what I was saying. And while we wait for that price action, let's get away from this 1 hour chart and let's move forward to perhaps let's say the 5 day, okay? Because we might see, a lot of price action happening on the 1 hour, but really what we want to know is Bitcoin okay or is it not okay, right? So on the 5 day, we can see here on the MACD that we're going to have a bullish crossing pretty soon. We have a formation very similar to this crossing, which hasn't happened since July 25th. And what was July 25th? Right here, right here. July 25th. And then what happened after that? We had a nice bull run, all right? And we're seeing that right now. We're getting that same cross right now on the MACD. See this right here, July 25th. And we're even a little bit before it. We're in this area actually, right? It's a little bit before it crosses. So can it reject and bounce down? Yeah, but how low can it actually go? This wave is smaller than this wave, so it doesn't have energy to go lower. It has to stay within a reasonable waveform. It can't just exaggerate itself. I mean, unless there's an insane, black swan event. So, yeah, it could do a little double bounce. That's possible. It's kind of rare on the 5 day, but we could see something, where it crosses and then it gets a little unstable and then like it goes sideways for a while and then another big dip, you see? But still, you have this run, right? So let's look at this one because this would be the worst case scenario. So let's see. Yep, this would be the worst case scenario. So if we were slightly before it, you would see something like this. And if you watched other episodes of Alpha Commission, then you'll see where I pointed out this type of occurrence. And I strongly encourage you to watch the other episodes because I do point out this pattern and how it is a distinct possibility. Okay, it is a distinct possibility for the future of Bitcoin, and that we may be just making one of these, relief rallies before we kind of just consolidate and then drop, right? Just chop and drop, choppiness and then drop. And then we have a nice run. But the thing is, even so, if you bought at this level, let's say you bought at this level before that drop, and you understood that this was the risk that you were taking, then you would still have bought at some pretty good price levels that would have preceded a pretty big run, right? Like that's not too shabby, right? You're not as worried about this drop when you realize that if you could have waited, it's quite a while, but if you could have waited 3 years, right? 3 years, you would get a nice super run. And if you waited, 1 year, if you just waited 1 year, then you could have gotten, almost doubled your money. Just depends where you bought in. So, yeah, you know, you have to understand that this is the risk that you're taking, that it could end up being one of these formations. But nevertheless, we're at these levels, which on a macroscopic view are pretty good for the future if you have time, okay? You should be willing to hold for at least 2 years if you're buying for those type of things. Otherwise, you're gonna have to trade the relief rally. And the relief rally itself, what, 15%, right? 15%. And that was based upon just the MACD, okay? So that's just the MACD. Anyway, it's turning up, so we should be heading towards profit, right? Worst case, we head towards profit, we take a little bit of profit, and then we chop and drop, okay? But anyway, right now, we're headed towards profit, and that's a key point because we're not dropping to hell. We're not dropping to hell. Right now, we are most likely seeing an upside. And do we see that anywhere else? Well, okay, here on the RSI, we got into that, bearish control zone. And we have this type of breakout right here where we've gotten above the white line and we've gotten out of this red zone. When was the last time that that happened? Right here. When was that? Oh, hey, again, right here. Right, even earlier than the previous signal on the MACD, we got that signal right here and we had a major run. So the RSI is saying, hey, you may have a major run coming up. Yeah, yeah, the RSI can do a little bit of weird ups and downs, right? It did a down right here. It could do some ups and downs. It could chop a little bit. It could maybe make a double bottom, right? You could have put this here and it came up and then it did a double bottom. I mean, double bottom right here and then it went down lower. But here's the difference. It got above the white line here. And now we're above the white line. If we can hold that, it's going to look pretty bullish because then we're on this type of, uptrend, right? Until we break down again. So what we want to see on the RSI is that we hold above that white line. And if we go to the daily, we see it also, right? We see it also. It's just a little bit more confusing on the daily, so the 5-day, a little bit clearer on the 5-day. Let's see, what else do we have here? The jewel on the 5-day giving us a pretty good indication right here. When did we have a crossing similar to that? Similar to right now? Right here. When was that? Oh, again, July 20th. Right there, right there, right? So we have all these signals telling us that this is a good moment to be buying in. It doesn't tell us that we're going to do, it doesn't tell us what the size of the run that we're going to do. We saw it could be as little as 15%, or it could be as big as 1000%, or it could be, 100%, 95%. So it doesn't tell us how big it is, but it does tell us that we're looking bullish. And again, the reason I want to point this out is just because on the short term, things may look bearish. On the short term, we may have ups and downs, but on these 5-day, indicators, which kind of plot out multiple weeks, they don't. It's not just good for 5 days. It actually it's looking forward to whole sets of 5 days, like multiple sets of 5 days. So weeks and weeks you're looking forward when you use these indications. And what we're seeing is something positive, right? It could be a little bit flat. It could take its time. It could chop, but there's probably going to be a pump, and then you're going to have to take your profits when we pump because we don't know if we're going to chop down and then dump. We don't know if we're going to chop and drop, right? So learn to take your profits when you come by them. And if we go back to our lower time frames, oh, look at that. Yeah. It recovered right to that diagonal, right to that diagonal, right? Almost made it down here. That's very strong. It's very strong. But look, it just liquidated a lot of people who were bullish, right? They saw this bull flag being formed. They thought, okay, I'm gonna buy this bull flag. We're gonna shoot up. And you know what saved me from not trying to trade this bull flag was this fractal. I wouldn't be surprised if we fall down here a little bit lower and then we just do, here's the flag, here's the flag. Wouldn't be surprised if we just make these little kind of like W's. Maybe barely even noticeable, right? Something like that, or maybe here, right? Something like that. And just shoot up maybe. I don't know. I don't know where it's gonna go. Just shoot up. In this case, we shot up a level. Let's see. If this is a level, then this flag was in this level, and it shot up it went all the way down and then shot up to a level that was above it. So if this is a level and it's going to break all the way down, or maybe just here, it doesn't have to be the same magnitude as the previous one, but it might take it to a level that's above it. So maybe to 46,000, maybe to 46,000. And coincidentally, that would also be in the neighborhood of the measured move for that bull flag, right? 46,500. Oh, and that's right at the top of that. That's right at the top of the channel that's like one above it. So, yeah, interesting. Just interesting. And yeah, I don't think I really want to go into too much more. We're at 28 minutes. This was more of an educational program today, and I hope you enjoyed that. Hope it helps you think just a little bit differently about the patterns on the charts. It was kind of cool to see something happen live. And again, the outlook for Bitcoin is a little bit bullish, and I'm sticking to that. I'm sticking to that. I'm going to be risking a bit in order to, put my money where my mouth is, and I hope it plays out because that's what the indicators are saying. But yeah, the altcoins will follow. Whatever Bitcoin does, the altcoins will follow. So let's look at KDA. Yep, nice drop when Bitcoin dropped, right? Let's look at Curedo. Nice drop when Bitcoin dropped. Totally different patterns playing out. Totally different patterns playing out. But behaves similarly, dropping. Yeah, look at this drop on EQZ. EQZ was amazing. Nice 25% pump. Let's see. Yeah, stocks are down. Yeah, grayscale. Doing the same thing as Bitcoin pretty much. Now, if you're on log, grayscale never broke out of its diagonal, its downward trend. That's interesting. That is interesting. Because on log scale, the smart money is still in a bear trend. They haven't broken up yet. And maybe this is in part why Bitcoin is struggling so much in this area, because maybe the smart money really is controlling Bitcoin on this type of logarithmic scale. And if they are, then Bitcoin's still pretty much in this, this mega pattern here. Again, you can just kind of visualize these diagonals and see channels in them. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you can kind of see what's going on here. Very bullish. It's at the top of a channel, and then we've just been breaking down in this channel ever since. We got super bearish at one point. I guess smart money freaked out. But look how perfectly it found support. And then spring just came right back up into this channel. So that's good. That's bullish. It recovered. It recovered. But it hasn't broken out of this channel yet. And that's just very different. It's just very different than Bitcoin on the regular exchanges. On the log scale, Bitcoin has broken out of that channel a long time ago, right? All of our price action is up here. So what's the difference? Why is that? Why is that? I'm not sure. But you can see the regular money, not the smart money, not the institutional money, but the regular money on the regular exchanges, they have a little bit more of a wave, of a full wave. They're less cleanly in that top channel, and I think that represents more fear in the regular market because maybe they feel a little bit less in control than the smart money does. And so that fear, you just saw how it got expressed. They actually made a new channel down here almost, and that just recovered. I guess the smart money said that, that's not our price yet. And they rejoined the smart money. Both had extreme fear. Both recovered to the top level. But the regular money, they got super bullish. Whereas the smart money, hasn't broken out in a bullish fashion yet. So we're waiting for this. We're still waiting for it. And we haven't gotten it yet. We haven't gotten it yet. So to be continued. Okay, guys, that was your alpha for today. And stay safe and happy trading.